The Los Angeles Dodgers are one of the most successful franchises in baseball history. Since moving from Brooklyn in 1958, they've won 5 World Championships while participating in 9 World Series. I hope you enjoy listening to the following interviews of some of your favorite stars, past and present. LA third baseman Casey Blake. Casey, I have a feeling this isn't your type of music.
It's really not. I'll listen to anything, but I'm more of a country guy. A little bit alternative, some old school Bruce Springsteen, stuff like that.
How do you like the song "Glory Days"?
It's okay. It's not his best song, but it's all right.
Of course, you're still in your glory days.
Well, sure. I'd like to think so.
Well, you had a pretty good season with the Dodgers last year. You came over. Obviously, Manny Ramirez infused a lot of energy into this team, and the team's looking really good in 2009, aren't they?
Yeah, we know we got a good team. You know, it's just a matter of showing up every day ready to play, and in this game, anyone can beat anyone at any time. So we know that, but that's why we got to show up and get our work in.
Dodger closer Jonathan Broxton. Well, Jonathan, you're from Waynesboro, Georgia. I was looking online. It said Waynesboro is the bird dog capital of the world. Tell me a little bit about that.
It's just we hold the field trials there every year, and if you're from there, you know a little bit about quail hunting and everything else. And I got 1 quail dog at my house, and I got 2 labs. So I do some bird hunting too myself.
So is that something that you like to do during the off season when you got a couple months?
Yeah, I go hunting. Go duck hunting, quail hunting, any kind of hunting I do. So.
Well, a lot of the ball players like to get out and hunt. They like to be out in nature. Of course, a lot of them come from the country. Have you talked at all to Casey Blake about his duck hunting?
Yeah, we talk a lot about duck hunting and just getting big into it like the last 3 years. So it's been a lot of fun playing with teammates that duck hunt too, so you can kind of relate.
Well, the quail is really good. Once you catch them, they're great to eat, aren't they?
Yeah, ducks are too. They got to be prepared right, but quail and doves, ducks, raccoons, anything that you can cook from the south, if it's prepared right, it's pretty good.
Raccoon, tell me a little bit about how you prepare raccoon.
No, I got some buddies back home that can cook it pretty good. They just parboil it and make sure it's tender, and they put it in there with some sweet potatoes, and it's real good.
I guess that is it, isn't it? How you prepare stuff. There's some stuff that it's hard to mess up, but if you cook it right, it's usually pretty good.
Yeah, if you cook it right and get it tender, you can make anything just about taste good.
Well, I heard that Andre Ethier does a food blog. Maybe you and Andre need to get together on a little raccoon.
I don't know about that one.
2-time National League batting champ Tommy Davis. Well, you were one of the heroes of my youth. I grew up in the Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale era. You too. And if I remember correctly, you had a year where you batted .346. I think that was 62 and .326 and 63.
Absolutely, that was good. And Maury had stole all those bases, helped me to get to about 153 ribbies. Yeah.
Those were great years. And if the Dodgers had great pitching, if anybody was doing any hitting, it was Tommy Davis.
Well, don't forget Frank Howard now. Frank also had a pretty good year there too, and Willie and Jim Gillian, they hit 280 or better, and Maury I think was close to 300, and that's why the formula was so good. They're in front of me with all that speed, and I got Big Frank hitting behind me. I got a lot of good pitches to hit.
Well, it must have been incredible too, playing back of a Don Drysdale, a Sandy Koufax, some of the greatest pitchers of their era, and even in the history of baseball.
Oh, don't forget Johnny Podgers and Ron Peronowski. We were always in the game with no runs. Seriously, because they were giving up no runs until one of us got 1, 2, or 3. If we got 1, 2, or 3, we were in the game.
Now, last I heard, you were living, I think, in the Rancho Cucamonga area doing business, and I saw you reuniting with some of your friends like Sandy Alomar and guys like Eddie Murray. You mentioned, right. I think, that Eddie Murray replaced you at Baltimore.
Yes, he did. Yeah, when I was with Baltimore, and he was coming up, and unfortunately, when he came up, would love to have played with him, but I had to leave.
What kind of feelings come back when you come here to Dodger Stadium? Because in many ways it's similar to when you were playing here, and then there's a few
not that
changes.
much difference. Not that much difference, except for the walls. They have all these, commercial walls and stuff like that. But it's similar. It's almost the same. It's a beautiful stadium. Was then, and it is now.
Past Dodger speedster Willie Davis. Well, I grew up here in the Los Angeles area. I was 8 years old in 1963, which was a great year. And you and the Dodgers beat the Yankees in the World Series 4 straight. What are your memories? Think back to those days. Not a lot of scoring on the Dodger team. Of course, you had a Tommy Davis who could swing the bat. You could hit the bat. You could really run. And then Maury Wills, of course, stealing bases. But then it was up to the pitching, wasn't it?
Well, you know what? We had one of the greatest pitcher staffs that you ever want to put together. Padres, Stan Williams, Sandy Koufax, and Don Drysdale. And Koufax, he threw those no-hitters, and I was out there for all 4 of them. So, the greatest pitcher that ever lived, that's Sandy Koufax.
And what was it about Koufax that you remember that made him so dominant?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. He had the greatest fastball and a good changeup and a great curveball. So, and he had command of all those pitches. And Sandy was the kind of guy, before each game that he pitched, he would always come up and grab me and says, "Okay, Willie, get me one or two, that'd be good." And he would say that before the game. That's utmost confidence.
Well, Sandy Koufax, probably in his final 4 years before his early retirement, there was probably never a pitcher to match 4 consecutive years like that, was there?
No way. And, for a person, if you got to see Sandy pitch, you were looking at greatness because to me, and I know, he was the greatest pitcher ever. That was Sandy.
Let's look back to your youth. Who were the players? You said you grew up around here, so I assume that, maybe, I guess back then they weren't even the Dodgers, they were back in Brooklyn.
Well, you know what? As me, I didn't really have that idols stuff, but I just was a great runner in high school. I was a great athlete, I played basketball, I ran track and baseball and football, all of them. I could do them all, you know what I'm saying? And so this scout with the Dodgers, his name was Kenny Myers, he got a hold to me and he says, "Listen, I'm going to groom you to be the Dodger center field. It's only going to take 2 years," and that's the way it happened.
That's incredible. What can you remember any of your times maybe running the 100-yard dash back in high school, college?
Yeah, I was 9'5", 9'6" man. That was me.
Pretty darn fast.
And I also broad jumped 25, 5.5, which is the high school national scholastic record. Still.
So you're kind of in the same class as maybe a Bobby Bonds.
Yeah, but you know what? Those guys, I mean, they were fast, but they weren't as fast as I was. My speed, nobody could match it. I just had the speed, and I just had a knack of doing those kind of things, like stealing a base. I could do that. Running for a triple, I think I got the Dodger record for triples, and I don't think anybody hit more triples than I did.
Well, my memories of you were scoring from first base on a single, and how you would pick up steam, your hat would go flying off, and almost like smoke from your feet.
Yeah.
Do you recall those situations?
Yeah, I recall those situations. People would, they wouldn't let me forget. They always say, when you round the first base, your hat would fly off and stuff like that. Did you have it oversized? No, it's just the wind made it come off.
L.A. right fielder Andre Ethier. Did you work a lot on your game during the offseason?
Not really. Didn't work at all too much. Just relax, had fun, and went back to the basics, and just let my thoughts and everything, don't let it get in the way of what I was trying to accomplish this year or this spring too much.
So sometimes not thinking so much about it is the best you can do.
Sometimes, you try to go in the spring and try too hard to fix yourself and get back into a certain way or say, I'm going to fix this, fix that, and sometimes you mess up even more. So this offseason just said, hey, I'm going to relax, and when it's time for me to start getting ready for our spring training, that's what I did, and, the approach a little bit different this year.
The Dodgers are a team with a plethora of outfield talent. Last year, you had to kind of work for some play time against probably one of your heroes, maybe one of the players you like to watch as a youth, Luis Gonzalez. What was it like to play with Luis Gonzalez with the Dodgers?
It was a fun experience, something that I never thought I would get the chance to do. And, it was, tough being in that situation where we had to compete for a job at the same time. But, hey, what do you know, back in the same situation this year and figure out a way to get it done again.
At the beginning, was it a little surreal? This player that had been such a very well-known player and a very successful player for your team, the Arizona Diamondbacks, being from the Phoenix area, and then here you are standing in the outfield, and you're one of his peers.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to swallow. Very, I guess unique situation to be in for a guy like me, especially young in his career, where you get a chance to compete with him for that spot. And learned a lot from him. Learned a lot of different things about the game, and just excited to get that opportunity to do that.
Former Dodger great Eric Gagne. Eric, you're back again and having another great season, closing for the Los Angeles Dodgers. How do you feel this year?
Feel good. I mean, we're playing good baseball, and we've been struggling the last couple months, but I mean, I'm feeling really good every time I go on the mound. And like I told you, I got 38 saves, but the guys behind me play real well. They play really hard for 8 innings and just give me the ball in 9th inning, so it feels good.
And you love that, don't you? Getting there when the game is on the line, challenging the hitters, just you against them.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's all about. I like to go out there and adrenaline rush when I go out there. It's amazing. I mean, I think I found my niche, and I just feel real comfortable out there, just going from one inning, going all out.
Well, you were a decent starter, but then you transitioned to a closer and became one of the best closers in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel really good out there. Like I said, I feel like I'm myself on the mound as a closer. As a starter, it was a little different. I had to go out there and control my emotions, stuff like that. As a closer, I just go out there and be real aggressive.
Is it kind of amazing to look back at when you had your injury that you almost considered going back into hockey, that maybe some of this that's been happening may never would have happened?
That's true. I mean, when I got my surgery in '97, I was thinking about going back to hockey. And like I said, 2 years after that, I was struggling as a starter. But, I mean, I love baseball so much. I have so much passion for baseball. I didn't really think about going back, really. But, it's always an option. But now, pretty happy I stick with baseball.
Well, being as intense as you are and really soaking that in when you're out on the mound, when the game's on the line, you've pitched in the All-Star game the last 2 years. Is it different when you go out and pitch in an All-Star game when you know that it really doesn't count as much as a regular season game?
Yeah, really different. I mean, because all the surrounding around you have so much stuff to do. You have so much people to meet. You're with your family. You don't really think about the game until you're in the game, actually. So it's very different. It's very hard to go out there and perform. Nowadays, at this time, it counts. But, I mean, every time I'm on the mound, I give 100%. So I don't think it made that big of a difference this year. It's just it came down to me, and I guess I'm the GOAT. I'm the one, the guy to blame now for the National League in the playoffs.
Two-time batting champ Nomar Garciaparra. Well, you had the benefit of playing in your hometown for several years. What was it like to play here at Dodger Stadium, kind of in shadows of where you grew up?
It's a thrill every day. It truly was. I loved coming to this ballpark every day. I mean, it was a place where I saw my first baseball game as a little kid, and it's always special to me, and to be able to put that Dodger uniform on, it was truly an honor and special, and something I'll never forget and to be able to cherish the rest of my life.
Did you feel like a kid sometimes with your parents at the game like they did as a youth?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, that was another thrill, to be able to see my parents there every day, and have my friends and family be able to come and watch and put on the uniform of their favorite team as well. So that was a thrill for me.
When you were a kid playing ball, did you ever kind of think that someday I'd like to be playing at Dodger Stadium as a Dodger?
You just thought about playing in the big leagues, really. As a little kid, you just wanted, hopefully someday, you're thinking about the stadium that you went to, and, Dodger Stadium, but you just wanted to get to the big leagues, and, I was able, I'm one of the very few lucky ones to fulfill that dream.
Well, I know you meet a lot of celebrities here at Dodger Stadium. You're a Dodger. I know that Jay Moore was a big fan of you.
Jay Moore's a good friend of mine. He's a dear friend of mine, and so we still keep in contact all the time and keep in touch. He's great.
He's a big sports fan, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He knows a lot about sports and all sports, and he is a big sports fan, and we've become pretty close friends.
And he's a bit of a character.
Yeah. He always makes me laugh. You can see as I'm smiling, talking to you right now, when I think about it, it definitely brings a smile to my face.
Well, has he flown up to Oakland to watch you play there?
Not yet. He's been busy. He's been busy. He's got his, his sitcom he's been doing, and he stays pretty busy. But like I said, we always, whenever we can cross paths, we get together.
When you came out to the plate here at Dodger Stadium, your signature tune was Lowrider. Did you get your Lowrider yet?
No, not yet. I haven't got that yet, so I'm still working on it in due time.
10-time All-Star first baseman Steve Garvey. Clay, it's well known that you were a Dodger bat boy for years. How was that as a bat boy looking forward and saying, gee, I want to play for this team? Was that what you were thinking?
Well, my first day was middle of March 1956 after the Dodgers had won the World Championship the previous fall. And I remember that day wearing an old wool uniform, and they had to roll up the sleeves and the pants. And that day I lugged the heavy bats around for Hodges and Snyder and Ferrillo and Campanella and Robinson, who were the great boys of summer. And then that night I dreamed about being a Dodger, and 12 years later I signed with the then Los Angeles Dodgers, and then became one. So my dreams came true. And when I do a lot of lecturing, and when I talk to parents, I tell them, let your children dream. Don't suppress their dreams, because dreams do come true.
I believe you had a football background. Is that correct? You had a great natural physique. You mentioned the athleticism, the strength of the young kids today, but you had a very good constitution. I guess it was pretty natural, wasn't it?
Well, I loved all sports, and back then it was seasonal, back in the 50s and 60s, and I played high school football, basketball, and baseball. In my last year, just football and baseball, and eventually went to Michigan State and played both there. And people say, how'd you do it? And I said, because you loved it. And still came up with a 2.85, I think, so almost at a B average. But I think football gave me a lot of fundamental skills that helped me with baseball. I think each of the sports makes you a better athlete because of the individual skills.
Think back to when you were playing Major League Baseball, those years adjacent to the 70s when that great Dodger team was assembled together. Who were some of the pitchers that really stood out to you, that impressed you looking back, that you were amazed at how great of a pitcher they were?
Well, I had a chance to face, at the end of their careers, the Gibsons and the Marichals, and then Tom Seaver pretty much in his prime, Phil Niekro, Gaylord Perry, Nolan Ryan. I've added up, I think I faced about 15 Hall of Fame pitchers, and not with a smile on my face most of the time, because these guys, day in and day out, the reason why they're Hall of Famers is because every time they went out there, they really, even if they didn't have their best stuff, found a way to get you out or get you to make you hit their pitch. So, it was an honor to face them, and every now and then the ball hit my bat and I got a hit, and I learned from each of them, though.
I heard that Bob Gibson was a very intimidating pitcher on the mound. What are some of your recollections of Gibson?
Well, the first time I faced him, I had been on the disabled list for about 6 weeks. I had torn a thumb ligament. And my first game back, Walter Alston said, Steve, you ready? I said, yep. He said, well, you're in there third and you're batting sixth. And first inning, 1, 2, 3, we got down. Next inning, I finally get up with 2 outs. And his first pitch, I hit a long foul ball, about 2 feet foul, that hits the Stadium Club there in St. Louis. And I thought, wow, I'm back. So I dig in, and next pitch is right at my ear, and I dive down, and 2 sliders on the outside corner, and I'm out of there. And I come back, and Walter Alston said, he doesn't like it when you hit the ball hard like that. I said, I guess he doesn't. So he was tough. He was a tough, mean pitcher, but obviously a great one. That's why he's in the Hall of Fame.
The current Dodger generation is more familiar with Tommy Lasorda than Walter Alston. Tell us about the man, Walter Alston. What was he like to play under?
Well, he had 23 one-year contracts, and I think that speaks for itself. A man who had a lot of confidence in himself and his baseball knowledge. He had managed the great players of Brooklyn and a lot of the great players in Los Angeles. And when it was all said and done, he had more wins than any manager in Dodger history, and he's in the Hall of Fame now. But he was a quiet leader, a man that when he spoke, you listened to him because he had analyzed and thought it out, and what he was going to say to you was going to make you a better player. Tommy, on the other hand, is, I've always said, the P.T. Barnum of baseball, a character, gregarious. Here's my man, and somebody who, almost the opposite. Sometimes you had to pick out what he was, telling you. But he watched you, he managed you, he nurtured you, he fathered you, and when it was all said and done, I think both managers, in their own way, enter the Hall of Fame, and not so much of how their teams played, but how they played the game. And I think it's a testimony to both Alston and Lasorda.
Former LA outfielder Shawn Green. Well, one of the things that a person notices watching you swing the bat is you probably have one of the most aggressive attacks on the ball. Have you always had that aggressive stroke? You're kind of a laid-back guy, kind of soft-spoken, and then you get up the plate, and then you're almost like a shark in a feeding frenzy when the pitch comes in.
Yeah, I used to be more of a contact hitter. I used to try to slap the ball to left. In high school, I always led off, so I don't know, all of a sudden I started learning how to hit home runs. Playing with Carlos Delgado made a big difference. We used to play in batting practice, have little home run derbies, and try to hit the ball out to center field. And all of a sudden I started figuring out how to drive the ball, and from then on I haven't wanted to go up there and take easy swings. I want to let it go.
So was some of it putting the backspin on the ball instead of having the topspin that makes it sink?
Oh yeah, it's all about the backspin. Hitting home runs is about just hitting the ball with backspin. If you can do that more times than not, then you're going to hit some balls in the air that are going to carry out.
When you were in high school, were you more of like a spray hitter? Did you go to all fields?
Yeah, I was a spray hitter and hit for high average. My first year in the minor leagues, I only hit 1 home run. In Double-A, I hit 4 home runs. So I didn't start doing that till my 4th year in the big leagues.
Todd Helton mentioned that he started to get the power stroke when he learned to pull the ball. I would imagine that you learn to hit by being a spray hitter, and then once you start pulling the ball, you get more of the long ball.
Yeah, you got to learn. There's different ways you go about it, but for me, it was just learning how to be a hitter and hit the ball the other way and all over the field, and then all of a sudden you kind of figure out that in the major leagues when you first get up there, they try to pound you in and see if you can hit that, and once you figure it out, that's when you kind of makes or breaks it whether or not you're going to be a power hitter.
You had a chance to develop your young career with the Toronto Blue Jays far away from home, and then you've been able to return maybe a half hour from where you grew up in Tustin. Has it been a thrill? I'm sure there are many ups and downs being here at Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been a dream come true getting a chance to play at home, and it's great for my wife and our daughter to be able to live a normal life rather than the baseball life, which is kind of crazy traveling around. So I'm real fortunate, and there's going to be ups and downs, and I knew that coming into it.
Mickey Hatcher of the 1988 World Champion Dodgers. I'm sure you've addressed this many times, but one more time, give us your account of what it was like in the 1988 World Series, the whole Kirk Gibson incident. How did you see it? How did it occur through the eyes of Mickey Hatcher?
Well, it was great. It was, he was in the locker room, and he had talked to Tommy before about having the opportunity to walk up to the plate and swing the bat. He felt he could do that. He felt that he could get to first base, and then Tommy could use somebody to run for him. But, he kept saying, if you need my bat, I'll give it a shot. And sure enough, in Game 1, the situation came up there, and everybody thought he was kidding. And I think Tommy went to him, as Tommy does with his magical moves sometimes. You think, how in the heck, why is he doing this? And he always comes out on top, and that was one of his moves. And Kirk Gibson went up to the plate, and, we didn't know what we were going to expect. And then when Davis stole second base, we really believed, hey, Gibby can get a knock here. We can tie the game here. Gibby can get a base hit. We never thought the home run would ever happen, but that was just one swinging baseball that everything went right for a hitter.
And he pretty much hit the home run just using his upper body.
Well, he used his hands. He really didn't hands and upper body, and just got a pitch out there, and really his hands really worked for him, and turned on it and pulled it, and just a very magical moment.
1988 Cy Young Award winner Orel Hershiser. You've been nicknamed the Bulldog, but you're more like a cat with many lives. Does it sometimes seem like you've been around forever?
It's been a long time. People continue to remind me that it's been a long time the longer I'm here, but I think that the Bulldog nickname came from Tommy Lasorda and from the intensity that he saw that I had on the mound and him reminding me to be intense. But as far as the 9 lives, I think that you continue to reinvent yourself. If you don't peg yourself into a corner and say, this is who I am, and you see the kind of tools that you bring to the ballpark on a daily basis, you can continue to invent or reinvent yourself.
Has that intensity been what has led you to some of the great successes you've had?
Well, I think that, first and foremost, God gave me the ability to throw the ball. I didn't ask for it when I was in my mom's womb. And then, so I thank him for that. And the intensity probably come from my father and my mom a little bit, but mostly my dad. And I think, I would credit the fact that dogmatic, I'm not going to give up, I'm going to keep going, to to win a World Championships back with the Dodgers, and then also to come back from shoulder surgery and now to keep playing at this age. I think there is intensity that helps.
And how does it feel to be throwing so well and also to be right in the heat of a pennant race here with this young Giant team?
Well, you know, at this point in my career, winning is the whole deal, and that's one of the reasons I selected the Giants and they selected me, is because winning's still important to me, and they have a chance to win. So this is the part of the plan of us being near the top and me doing well still. So it seems to be all working out. You know, this is early in the season, this is a marathon, but I'm looking forward to this continuing.
You've had your best May since 1988. Your pitching coach back then, I believe, was Pernaski. He's here with you with the Giants. Is it kind of a deja vu for you?
Oh, well, it's great to have Ronnie around. I mean, I don't have to run any of the advice he gives me through a filter. I just immediately take it and put it to work. And when you were born and bred with him and he trained you as a pitcher, that's the guy you want to be around, to have this kind of confidence in the strategy that he's giving you. So I'm excited to be with him. We're having a blast, and fortunately it's working out.
You mentioned that you had to reinvent yourself maybe a number of times in your career. How are you different as a pitcher? How would you describe yourself and the way you approach the hitters now compared to the old days of 1988?
Well, I think the whole deal is that you see a palette of different pitches that get people out. You see the late breaking curveballs, and you see the rainbow curveballs. You see the hard fastballs with no movement, and you see the slower fastballs with great movement. And if you look at the whole palette of what's out there in pitching, and you say, okay, there's people succeeding at one end and people failing at the other, you start to develop yourself and pick and choose. And most of it has to relate to location, and then it has to do with fooling the hitter. And if you can get the right locations on the hitters to their weaknesses, you've got a chance to win. I feel that as I have reinvented myself, that I've gone away from a pitch that was very, very dominant, a power sinker, to a sinker that just kind of normal, that needs to be set up a little bit more. So I need to realize that and continue to set that pitch up.
Is the more mature Orel Hershiser also much wiser and a smarter pitcher?
I hope so. That, or I'm really stupid. I think I'm wiser, not because I'm special, but because I have a lot of experience. I don't think people that actually always get smarter and smarter and wiser really started with more tools than anybody else. They were just afforded the experience to learn, and if you apply yourself as you're going through your life experiences, you have a chance to get wiser. There are a lot of people that just go through and just let things bounce off of them and float like a leaf on the ocean and don't really make an impact, but if you apply yourself and take an inventory on a daily basis of what's happening and trying to learn from it, I think you definitely can get wiser.
Look back through your career. Who have been some of the toughest hitters for you to pitch to, and why?
Well, I think low ball, left-handed hitters are really tough for me because I've got to go strength against strength. And I think back to a Pittsburgh lineup when Barry Bonds was there, and Bobby Bonilla and Andy Van Slyke, and a Philadelphia lineup back when Lenny Dykstra was there, and Dalton and Kruk and a bunch of those guys. So whenever you see me facing low ball, left-handed hitters nowadays, those are the guys that give me the most trouble.
So have you improved as a pitcher in part because you don't have to throw to Barry Bonds anymore?
Probably. Anybody who doesn't have to throw to Barry's improved. So it's great to have him as a teammate and have him on my side. Those intense moments of competition that we had back when I was with the Dodgers and he was with the Giants in Pittsburgh are long gone, and now that we're teammates and friends, it's a lot of fun, but definitely don't like pitching to him.
You had abbreviated pitching experience in Bakersfield. You threw 2 games, yet you become a part of their history. Your picture is there. You're in their magazines and their programs. What are some of your memories, if you've got some, of pitching in Bakersfield in 1991?
Well, I remember pitching and it being a really good crowd, and they were very, very friendly, and I threw to Mike Piazza. And when I was there, Piazza was the catcher, and everybody knows he's Tommy's godson and has made himself a star now, and he's with the Mets and doing really well. But I think that the thing I remember is that when I got back from my rehab stints, I had pitched at A-ball, AA, and AAA, and they asked me, well, who was the best catcher that caught you? And I said Piazza was. And so that's a pretty fond memory of Bakersfield, kept throwing to a young Mike Piazza and then later throwing to him as a Dodger later in life.
Sweet Lou Johnson of the 1965 World Champion Dodgers. What are your memories going back to that perfect game by Sandy Koufax, and you broke up that no-hitter by Bob Henley back here in 1965?
Sometimes I have amnesia, but I never forget that date, September 9th of 1965, which was a wonderful, wonderful day for me. Don't too many people get a chance to do what I did. A perfect game. I got the only hit.
And
the only run.
Yeah, you scored the only run, and we didn't even need that base hit. You got that double later on in the game, and without it, the Dodgers already had a run. It could have been a double no-hitter.
It could have been a double no-hitter. Sure, it could have been. But you know, that was my name, Sweet Lou the Spoiler.
Well, you were a spoiler that day. Great memories here, weren't there, with Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, Tommy Davis, Willie Davis. What memories pop up in your mind?
The whole season. More specifically, when you mentioned Tommy broke his ankle, and that's when I come up with the Dodgers. And most of the people who knew baseball knew that the season was over when Tommy broke his ankle. But I knew a little different. I come in with a new view, new energy, and I was ready to play. So I had a great time that year, carried the team to the World Series, and then on top of that, to put the icing on the cake, I got the home run to win the World Championship for the Dodgers in the last game. So, hey, what kind of year can you have?
Past Dodger first baseman Eric Karras. I understand your father was a Brooklyn Dodger fan. Was he pretty excited when you got drafted and signed by the Dodgers?
Huge Brooklyn Dodger fan. I think he was probably more excited than I was about getting drafted by the Dodgers. I grew up a big fan of the Cincinnati Reds, and so when I was drafted by the Dodgers, I think that he was excited. Definitely, wanted me to sign, if I was going to sign with any club, to sign with the Dodgers, and now he's had an opportunity to watch me play for this is my 12th season.
Well, and you've been very consistent with the bat, hitting the home runs, driving in the runs, and now you find yourself, after all these years, you're right there back of Duke Snider and Gil Hodges. That's pretty exciting.
Well, I'm quite a ways back of those two, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I've been a pretty consistent player. I don't think that you look at me and I'm not the type of guy that's going to all of a sudden hit 45 or 50 home runs or drive in 130, but for a number of years I've been able to be relatively consistent, and that's what I try to do year in and year out.
And your dad was a big fan of Gil Hodges, wasn't he?
Big fan of Gil Hodges. He was a big fan of the Brooklyn Dodgers, liked all the guys, and I think he kind of like Gil Hodges just because he was a guy that didn't receive all the accolades. There was Jackie Robinson and Pee Wee Reese and Duke Snider and Campanella, and Hodges wasn't at the forefront of that group, but he was definitely a mainstay.
You spent a lot of time in Manhattan Beach with Jason Kendall and Mike Piazza in the past. You guys still get together during the off season?
Yeah, we work out. Mike and I came up through the organization, and obviously spent a lot of years here in LA. And when he gets back into Manhattan Beach, we go and work out, get together, and we've been working out for the last 3 or 4 years together. So it's a pretty good group.
Jason likes to surf. Do you surf?
No, I stay away from that. I leave that to Jason. He does the surfing part, and I'll do the working out part.
You were a walk-on at UCLA. Were you offered scholarships at other schools to play ball?
No, I didn't receive any scholarships at all. San Diego State was interested just with the promise that I'd be on the team, and UCLA gave me the opportunity to at least be on the team in the fall, and so I went there, and that was really the only promise made to me. And fortunately, I had a good enough fall to make the ball club, and then spent 3 years there under Gary Adams.
Were you kind of a late bloomer?
I wouldn't say I'm a late bloomer. I'm not a player that you're going to go watch, even now, watch for 1, 2, 3 games and walk away and say, wow, that guy's really can do some things. I think at the end of the year, you look at what I've accomplished and say, wow, that guy's not a bad player. And that's the way I've always been, whether it was in high school, college, or pro ball.
You provided a scholarship there for baseball. Do you stay in close ties with the baseball program?
I try to keep involved. I endowed a scholarship there. Again, at UCLA, they gave me an opportunity to pursue baseball, and I really felt I grew a lot there under Gary Adams, and Tippy Lefevre, who was our hitting coach at the time, really was the first one to just really spend a lot of time with me, and he's had a huge impact on my career. And so I felt that college is supposed to prepare you for life, and that's definitely what UCLA offered.
LA center fielder Matt Kemp. You're a big guy, but you got good speed. You received a nickname from Don Sutton on a broadcast called the Bison. What was your response to that nickname?
It's done caught on to a lot of people. So some people now are calling me the Bison. I don't know where it comes from, but I guess I'll use the name.
Well, I guess it's apropos coming from Oklahoma. It's probably a good part of the country for that type of a nickname.
Yeah, we got buffaloes, bisons, we got all that. We had that in Oklahoma, so basically I really don't know what to say to that, but I guess that's just what it is.
There's not a lot of time to work during the off season because you end the baseball season before you know it, you're starting off in spring. What did you work on during the off season?
Just getting in shape and basically nothing too much different except I didn't go over the winter ball this year. I worked on getting in shape and just concentrating for the upcoming season, and like I said, really excited about this season.
You picked up a little China ball.
Yeah, I went over to China, had a good time, and now we're back over here and ready to go to work.
Did you get some good sightseeing in?
Yeah, went to the Great Wall and got to see history, something that you were in elementary school and junior high. You learned about the Great Wall, and I got to experience going to the Great Wall. So that was really exciting and fun too.
And I heard that the Chinese fans show a lot of enthusiasm for baseball.
Yeah, they're trying to catch on. It's not really popular over there, but they're catching on, and that's what the purpose was, to go over there and try to introduce baseball to China, and hopefully it works.
You had opportunities to play collegiate basketball and wisely chose baseball. I'm sure you could have been a fine basketball player. Do you keep up much with NCAA March Madness?
Really, this spring's been crazy. Haven't really got to watch too much TV, not too much basketball. So, I know a couple teams that are in the Elite Eight, and I really haven't got a chance to really catch. It's been really crazy spring training.
Do you keep your ties with buddies like Sheldon Williams?
Oh, of course, yeah. We talk at least once every 2 weeks, maybe. He's busy, I'm busy. Schedules. He's in his season. He's with Sacramento, and he's working hard. I'm working hard, so it's kind of tough the schedules we have. So we get to talk to each other whenever we have the chance to.
Being in LA, have you had the opportunity to maybe acquaint a little bit with some of the Lakers, hang out, catch a little Laker basketball?
I actually pretty good friends with Trevor Ariza. We actually hung out last night. That's one of my friends. They have a great squad. I'm excited about them. I'm pretty much a Laker fan now because going to the games and watching them play. I like the way they play, and I hope they get to the NBA championship just like I hope we get to the World Series.
And what do you think about the acquisition of Paul Gasol?
Man, that's what better acquisition to make than Paul Gasol. He's one of the best players in the game, and he's made this team. He made the Lakers team. He's made them stronger than what they were, before they lost Bynum. Hopefully Bynum comes back, and they'll be even stronger. And Trevor.
Are you a Kobe Bryant fan?
Oh, for sure. He's one of the best players in the game. He is the best player in the game. Watching him play, it's like me playing basketball against elementary kids. He makes it look so easy. I just don't understand how he does it. He amazes me every time I go to the game.
Legendary Dodgers skipper Tommy Lasorda. Well, the Dodgers have put together a pretty good start this year, one of the best starts in years past.
Well, that's a good thing. Starting out is good. There's an old saying, if you win them in April, you don't have to win them in September. So that's a truism, because a lot of times in September you say, why didn't we win those 3 or 4 games that we were ahead in April? You win them in April, it plays off for you.
Well, there have been a lot of naysayers about this Dodger team saying, gee, they didn't have enough free agent talent coming into the season. They're off to an outstanding start.
Well, it was a matter of guys performing. That's what it was. Guys giving their best, guys doing the best they can. If every guy on this team plays the way they should play, then that's what they're going to do. They're going to continue winning. You play for the name on the front of your shirt and not for the name on the back of it.
Tommy, I'd like to go back a little bit in your baseball history. You were quite an outstanding pitcher for the Montreal Royals back in 1953. I understand you were one of the members of the All-Star team last year.
Yeah, well, that was years ago. But I enjoyed Montreal, and I always said that Montreal would be able to support a major league team. I think what happened in Montreal is that big ballpark way out of town. I think that's what hurt them. If they had a stadium downtown, they would be able to draw people.
Well, there was an outstanding young pitcher back at the same time that you were trying to break in the Dodgers, Sandy Koufax. Give us your recollections of Koufax as he broke into the major leagues.
Well, you know, that's my claim to fame. When they had to cut the club, they called me in and told me that they had to cut the club. I said, well, why are you keeping Koufax? He said, well, the rules of baseball provide if you give a guy over $4,000 bonus, he has to stay on a major league club for 2 years. So he says, Koufax stays and you go. So now I can honestly say, took one of the greatest left-hand pitchers in baseball to knock me off of that Brooklyn club.
What kind of a pitcher were you? Like we mentioned, a very effective pitcher at the AAA level.
Well, what kind of pitcher was I?
What type of stuff did you have? Koufax obviously had the great fastball, had to learn to get the control.
Yeah, well, my best pitch was a curveball, and a lot of hopes and prayers to go with it. I'll say it.
Four-time All-Star catcher Paul LaDuca. When you play professional baseball, you can go from the obscurity to a Bakersfield to a high-profile media market like Los Angeles, where you see yourself put on a bobblehead doll. Has that been kind of fun?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's been great. You put it in perspective. Your little nephew tells you that my uncle's is a toy, so that's pretty special. I mean, it was a great day when they had bobblehead day here, and all my family enjoyed it, and it was awesome.
Well, I would say, as far as the bobbleheads go, you probably look more like your bobblehead. I should say it looks more like you than some of the other players. Sean Green, it's hard to recognize from his bobblehead.
Yeah, they did a good job on mine. They did a good job on Eric's too. Gagne's looks good, and all the rest of them are sort of weird. But I think with my facial hair, sort of makes it stick out a little bit. But they did a good job.
2 years before, the Dodgers won 86 games. Last year they won 92, but didn't make it to the World Series. Playing baseball in Los Angeles sometimes can be a little bit under a microscope, can it?
Well, definitely. We just haven't got it done. And I sit out this season, and we told everybody, no matter if you win 80 games or 100 games, you got to get it done. As long as we get to where we need to be as the playoffs, and the people in here in LA expect it, and we expect it out of ourselves too, and we haven't gotten it done yet.
Current first baseman James Loney. This year's team looks to be very talented. Last year had a very good roster, but you've got players like yourself, the younger players that are a year experienced and improved, and a number of talented veterans, hopefully with a healthy Rafael Furcal. This has the potential to be a very good team, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I think having Furcal at the top of your lineup is something everybody would love to have. Just the way he can hit for power. He's a speed guy. He can steal a base. He can do all those things. So it's definitely a good fit.
You're kind of a quiet, soft-spoken guy, but here you are in one of the biggest media markets. You're right next to Hollywood. Has it been exciting or fun, or is it a little invasive sometimes with all the exposure?
That's fun. I actually live in Burbank, so I'm real close to the studios and all that kind of stuff. It's definitely fun, getting a chance to play in the city. It's such a big city, and we have great fans. Obviously the best fans I've ever played for. But definitely, it brings a lot of intensity to our games.
Past Dodger base stealer Davey Lopes. When you were a kid, anticipating possibly playing in the major leagues, was that something you thought about a lot as a kid? And who were the players that you kind of keyed on? Were they guys that stole bases, or were just all kinds of players?
No, it was just mainly guys. I was from New England, so naturally I saw a lot of Red Sox games. So Ted Williams, in my opinion, the greatest hitter to play the game. And it was Jackie Robinson, obviously, for obvious reasons. And I'd like Aparicio because I played shortstop at that particular time. Willie Mays. And there was just several guys that you respected their talents, and you try to, I don't know if you say you try to copy their style or anything, but you just go out and play the game, and you enjoyed the way they played the game.
Well, there have been so many great memories here at Dodger Stadium. During your career, you had such a fantastic team that was together for quite some time. What are some of the memories that stand out in your mind when you think back to the winning teams on this Dodger team?
Well, we had a lot of great teams. My rookie year, actually, 73, we challenged Cincinnati all the way to the last month, and Cincinnati overtook us. 74, we won it. 77, 78, I thought with our best teams. Unfortunately, we didn't play as well in the playoffs and the World Series as we did during the course of the year, and the Yankees beat us too. But I thought those two teams in 77 and 78 were as good a teams as any in baseball at that particular time, and we could challenge anybody. and won on any given day, and that's how we felt. And 81, we did win it, but again, there's always that asterisk because of the shortened season. But we were the best at that particular time, so that was something to be proud of also.
Big-time Dodger fan, comedian George Lopez. George, how deep do your baseball roots go?
Well, I can now no longer play, so we know the tree's not going to grow anymore, but the roots are deep. You know, I played Little League. We lied because you had to be 7, and I started when I was 6. And I played in high school, and I played in Sunday leagues, and I played in some celebrity baseball games, and I still have my glove, and I still have baseballs around the house and bats. And it's just, you know, I was my grandfather and I didn't spend a lot of time together, but we spent all the best times at Dodger Stadium.
So what high school did you go to?
I went to San Fernando High. I played baseball in those 3 years, 76, 77, 78, 79. We went to the playoffs against Chatsworth or El Camino, and we lost on a foul tip that they said was fair. Not that I remember, but it's just, you know, I just loved it so much. And you know what I miss? You know, I'm a big golfer. But I miss being part of a team. You know, I miss running out there with a bunch of other guys, and I miss that. And whatever level, I missed it in Little League, and I loved being part of a team in high school, and I missed it on Sundays when we would all sit around in the same uniforms and go eat and hang around. It's great.
You were a little bit after the A.D. Davis era at San Fernando.
I was, yeah, and a little right after Charles White, but it was a fantastic place for talent. And you know, the unfortunate thing is that there were a lot of guys who were very talented who didn't have the grades to continue their education. You know, that's why, you know, every opportunity I get, you tell kids that, you know, talent isn't everything. You need brain talent as well.
How about Fernando Valenzuela? You're also part of that era as a fan, aren't you?
Yeah, that was really good times. I mean, to have press conferences before baseball games and what he did to the city. And what an icon that he is. And there's a lot of Dodger icons, you know, Sandy Koufax and Garvey and Jackie Robinson and, you know, even Walter Alston, and you see these guys. But, you know, Fernando, for us, Latinos, especially Mexican Americans in this town and being from Mexico at a really important time in the early 80s was like, you know, what people felt like when Barack Obama won the presidency. It was like having our guy in our town.
Have you had an opportunity to get well acquainted with Fernando and maybe Jaime Jarrín?
You know, I talked to them on the radio a couple of times, and I've seen Fernando at a couple of golf courses, and we're very friendly when we talk. And you know, when I see him, it's like, you know, he's an icon, and he's, you know, he works for the Dodgers still, and he's amazing.
Your views of Manny Ramirez and the 2009 Dodgers?
Well, this team is, you know, first of all, I think Joe Torre and his coaching staff with Don and Larry and those guys, and you know, Joe Torre is such a baseball guy, and you know, not to say anything disparaging about managers, but this is a real baseball guy who's won championships, and he's in LA, and you see him, and he just looks like a winner, and he's turned this team into guys that believe they can win the championship, and you know, it's been a few years, and it'd be nice to get it back.
George, one last question. What brings you specifically this day to Dodger Stadium?
You know what I was doing is I have a show starting November 9th on TBS, a talk show late at night, and I was doing some promos for baseball on TBS, and I did one with Matt Kemp, who is a great kid, and it's pretty funny. It's good, you know, the promos are a little bit edgy, and Matt was great guy.
George, great to see you here. Keep rooting for the Dodgers.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
My team.
Two-time All-Star Russell Martin. Well, you came from a position kind of being back of Dioner Navarro, and then suddenly Navarro's injured, you play, you responded well.
Focus is on Manny Ramirez right now, so that's right now. You know, it happened so fast, and an opportunity, and I just wanted to seize it and make the best of it, and you know, so far so good.
And amazingly, things worked out for Navarro. He ended up going to the World Series at Tampa.
Yeah, no, he's done well for himself as well. You know, he found a home in Tampa Bay, and you know, he's been catching every day. Made the All-Star team last year, and you know, I wish him all the best. He's a good catcher.
Well, the moment that Manny came to the Dodgers last year with 2 months left in the season, it was like a total turnaround. All of a sudden, this high energy, the focus, like you said, was all on Manny. Did that take pressure off you?
I think it alleviated a lot of the mediatic attention, that the young guys were getting, because I know in the past it was the younger guys and the veteran guys, and there was a lot of talk about that. And then Manny came in and he kind of treated everybody the same, and he kind of just made the whole team gel. We just started having fun, and that took a lot of pressure off. And he's been able to handle it for years, and it definitely helped us a lot. And I think that's one of the reasons why we got to the postseason last year.
And it doesn't hurt when the guy hits close to 400.
That too. I mean, his production, speaks for itself. But the person who he is behind the scenes is awesome as well.
Well, I heard that you also have a fairly new love interest in your life. How did you meet that person?
I met her through Eric Gagne is actually married to her sister. So and then that's how I met her through Eric, and she's just a great person, and it's just bringing joy into my life. It's awesome.
And you can't beat a favorable introduction, can you?
No, you can't. Absolutely.
ESPN and Giants announcer Jon Miller. You've become one of the most recognizable voices in the game of baseball, but an announcer here, Vin Scully, has just established a legacy that may never be equaled. You do a great impersonation of Vin Scully. Could we hear that?
Yeah, Vinny, the greatest broadcaster in my estimation that there is and ever was. And you think of Vinny is that distinctive voice that's just unmistakable. And most of us, we just speak English. We say, me, Charlie Steiner, Rick Lundy, we say, here's the 1-1 pitch, a curveball, outside, ball 2, right? But Vinny's much more elegant than that, right? Vinny's like, the 1-1 pitch on the way, curve low, ball 2. And, I'll never forget when he paid me this great compliment at a big banquet one night. He said, now, Jon Miller over here is the best baseball broadcaster in America, in his price range. Wow. Thanks, Vin.
And what about the Japanese and the Spanish version of Vin Scully that you do?
Well, young broadcasters who wanted to be baseball broadcasters often would try to imitate Vin Scully, figuring, well, he's the best, so I want to sound like him. And that was a tribute to Vin. And I really did not realize that his fame had spread worldwide until I went to Tokyo back in the 80s, and I really wanted to hear the voice of the Tokyo Giants, Genshiro Asami. And, like yourself, I knew of Asami-san, but I'd never heard Asami-san. So I turned on the television with great expectation to at long last hear the legendary voice of the Tokyo Giants, and he put me off a little bit because he was doing Vinny. Watashi wa Korakuen Stadium ni orimasu. Hajime mashite dozi yoroshiku lo. Ball 2. It was like kind of astounding, really. And same thing down in Venezuela. I heard the great legendary voice of baseball in Caracas, Venezuela, and he was like, El partido de béisbol con Farmer Juan, con hamburguesa, con queso, muy mejor en todo el mundo. So.
Jon Miller, that's great. It's fun to listen to you guys. Do you still do the midnight replays of the games on KNBR?
Well, I personally don't do them, but I think they do actually replay the game for lack of better programming. I don't know why they do, but apparently there's some people who were working the swing shift or whatever, they can listen to the game driving home or whatever. So you can hear that in L.A., by the way, because KNBR is a booming 50,000-watt giant voice, so of the Giants.
Well, it'd be difficult to maintain the same enthusiasm in the later game as in the earlier game.
Well, that's right. When we do the game at midnight, we're much more tired sounding, and outside ball 2. 3-1. No. So, so that's it. I should check that out to find out if we sound like we're half asleep on the midnight version.
Former player and current announcer Rick Monday. One of the things that endeared you to the American public was the incident in which you saved the American flag. I know you probably related this a number of times, but it's something that's touched myself and a lot of people. Tell us just a little bit about that experience and how that took place and how you remember it.
A couple of guys came out on the field, and they spread out what proved to be an American flag, and they doused it with lighter fluid. The wind blew the first match out. James Rourke took a picture they won a Pulitzer Prize for that shows that they were trying to put the second match to it as I got close enough, and I took the flag away from them. And it was soaking wet. My first instinct was to try to determine, is this thing already on fire or not? Well, it was not. They threw the can of lighter fluid at me. Both those two people were fined $80, put on 2-year probation, and very proudly, that flag is in my home. And very proud of the fact, but embarrassed by the attention that I was presented with, because quite frankly, that's what we're supposed to do. That's what's right. And what they did was wrong then, 1976, and as far as I'm concerned, it is wrong to this day, and it will always be wrong, because there are avenues to go ahead and voice any displeasure that you might have.
12-time All-Star Mike Piazza. You're being considered to be one of the greatest hitting catchers in the history of baseball. You were a 62nd round draft pick when you first came out I guess from Miami-Dade. In any stretch of the imagination, did you see yourself at that time having a successful career like this?
Well, yeah, I mean, you dream about it and you do the best you can. You work hard, and I was fortunate that I had some doors open for me, and I took advantage of it. And it's just the way it goes. I mean, I've worked hard and always tried to stay focused, and so I'm a pretty good success story. And someday maybe I can share it with people and hopefully inspire people to never give up and dream hard and play hard and work hard, and good things happen. I mean, have a good attitude. I've always enjoyed some of the smaller things of baseball, just enjoyed the company, and so I've been definitely been rewarded because of it.
The story of you being drafted as a favor by Tommy Lasorda, is that a true story?
In some ways, yeah, it is. Tommy has enjoyed, he's always enjoyed telling the story, but I mean, I had a good relationship with Tommy when I was a kid, and my dad and Tommy grew up together in Norristown. Tommy's a little older than my dad, and I mean, I had some attention from pro scouts. I mean, I wasn't a completely unknown commodity, but Tommy did give me an opportunity to come with the Dodgers, and he definitely gave me an opportunity to make a stake here when I was Rookie of the Year. And so, I mean, I worked hard and did a lot of the work, but he did help me out a lot, and I'll always be grateful.
LA speedster Juan Pierre. As a baseball player, occasionally a player gets an opportunity to be a part of pop culture. You're mentioned and you're part of the lyrics of a song by Jay-Z. What does that mean to you?
It's pretty good, man. Jay-Z is probably one of the top 3 rappers out nowadays. I couldn't believe it. If he didn't say my whole name, I still wouldn't believe it. But nobody can question it because he says my full name, and so I think it's pretty cool. Songs never get old; they don't ever die. So hopefully, it's a song that will be played for maybe my grandkids or some can listen to it. Now I can tell them Paul was in the song or something. But it's pretty cool to be mentioned in the song.
Does it amaze you sometime that very well-known, famous people are aware of you and your accomplishments?
Especially me, yeah, because I'm not no superstar. You don't never see me on Sports Center or not a big name in a household and people that don't that follow baseball. So when anybody of that magnitude even notice what I do, it's pretty cool because, like I said, I'm a guy that flies under the radar, and I kind of like it that way. I like to stay under the radar, let everybody else have the glitz and glamour. So it's pretty cool when someone like that notices me.
If a little kid was to say to you, Juan, I want to become a major league player, I would like to have the chance to be a world champion, what would you tell him? What advice would you give?
First of all, study hard. Got to get the books so you can be allowed to play the game, in high school and stuff like that. And to work hard and never let anyone say you can't do it. I've been doubted all my career and still being doubted. And now I just always continue to believe in yourself and never let anyone say you can't do it.
2-time world champion Manny Ramirez. Well, for so long, you being with the Cleveland Indians and the Boston Red Sox, to see you in Dodger blue, it's a different look, but it seems to be working out well for you.
I like it, man. And like I always say, you know, my first uniform that I wear when I was like 7 or 8 years old, my grandmother, she gave me a Dodger uniform. And I'm just happy to be here.
Well, you know, the Dodgers have had such a great amount of top Latin players and also a good Latin fan base, Dodger fans.
Man, let me tell you something. In my career, nobody received me the way they did, and it's awesome. Like I said, you know, I'm just happy to be here. You know, I just want to come play hard and show people the way I play, and that's it.
Well, you've had a tremendous career so far. You've been able to not only win a lot of individual accomplishments, but you've been able to win a couple of World Series with the Boston Red Sox. Look back to 2004. Wasn't that an incredible year? Your memories of that first World Series championship?
Man, it's a feeling that you can't even describe it, man. But I think, you know, it's always a year that what is yours, you know, nobody could take it away from you, and that's what happened. You know, David Ortiz, he did an unbelievable job, and we passed the Yankees, and then we went to the World Series and we won.
Well, David Ortiz is an incredible clutch hitter, and you yourself, you seem to be one of the few Major League Baseball players that are able to kind of avoid distractions and perform very well when the game is on the line and pretty much when different things are going on. Have you always been that way since you were a kid?
I look at it this way, you know. It's like sometimes they get you and sometimes you get them, and that's the way the game is, and it's just like that, you know. They're going to come and get you sometimes, and you're going to get them, so everything's going to come around.
Well, you know, it was 86 years since the Red Sox won a World Series, and then you guys took one in 2004, and then to come back 3 years later, that was extra special, wasn't it, winning in 2007 again?
Man, you know, we got a bunch of great guys in the organization, great pitching, and the offense is great, so that's what it's all about, you know.
There have been a lot of instances of interesting plays. One of the plays you did, I think it was this year, was you ran up the wall, made a great catch, you high-fived a fan, and then you threw a player out at first base. Was that all just kind of spontaneous?
Man, I think they passed that yesterday on TV, and Andrew, he was giving me a hard time. How did you do that? I don't know, man. It was something, you know, that just come out, you know. I just went and jumped. I couldn't stop. So I jumped and I just hit fight that guy. And, you know, I was lucky, you know, to go out and double up the guy at first base.
And so it was something just kind of spontaneous, nothing that you really planned. There he was. You made the catch, you high-fived him, and then made the throw.
Right. So I'm just blessed, you know, to be in this situation here. You know, we got a good group of guys, and I'm here.
As a kid, you were a fan of, I believe, the Toronto Blue Jays.
Mm-hmm.
Who are some of your favorite players from those teams back in the 80s and the 90s?
I think all of them. You know, I remember like in 85, 86, you know, I was in New York, and my dad always used to take me to Yankee Stadium, you know, just to watch the Blue Jays. When they used to have all the Spanish, you know, like Tony Fernandez was there, Liriano, Junior Felix, all the Spanish. I went, and I was a big fan of the Blue Jays.
And when you came up out of the minor leagues, you joined the Cleveland Indians 1993 for the latter part of the season. Was that pretty exciting for you, going on joining a team that had Carlos Baerga and Albert Bell? What are your memories of that year?
Man, it was a blast, man. Everybody was great, you know. I learned a lot from everybody. Oh, my God. It was fun. It was fun. Yeah!
Oh! And has it been fun also? You've had the opportunity to be on the cover of 2 video games.
Great,
you enjoy
man.
that?
I love it, man.
And L.A. is a big media center here. You look forward to some of the interaction with Hollywood?
I don't know. I'm just here on vacation, you know.
And enjoying baseball.
That's right.
And Greg Maddux on your team. How's that?
Great guy, man. I love him.
Hall of Fame announcer Vin Scully. You've seen so much of the game through the years. What are a few of the moments that have had a great impact on you that maybe stand out in your mind?
Well, certainly number one in Brooklyn was 1955 when the Brooklyn Dodgers, as fate would have it, won their only World's Championship. I was younger, more emotional, and it left a tremendous mark on me. The joy of it. I had shared the frustration with the players of losing all the time to the Yankees. So when they finally won, and to see the people in Brooklyn really become ecstatic, that was a number one. And then out here, of course, we've had so many great individual accomplishments. Don Drysdale, Sandy Koufax, Maury Wills, Tommy Davis, went on and on and on. And maybe the single great moment out here was the one that was judged as the big moment, would be Kirk Gibson's home run.
That was exciting. One final question. You're considered to be one of the greatest baseball announcers in the game. There are also some outstanding announcers right now, some great ones that you worked with and that maybe you idolized when you were younger and just starting out. What are the elements and the qualities of the great baseball announcers that you have been acquainted with?
Well, I would think, first of all, they were extremely accurate. You have to give them that. Number two, they have to understand the game and its rules. You would give them that. Also, because they were accurate, the fans believed in their judgment. If you are a rooter, if you are someone who becomes ecstatic only when a member of your team does something good, it undermines the belief of the fan. After a while, the fan thinks, I can't trust him. He's always cheerleading one team and not the other. So he has to be fair. And above all, I guess, besides the obvious, you'd like him to be, besides accurate, entertaining and informative. And if he can be slightly humorous, friendly, down to earth, I think all of those qualities go into the mix, I would guess.
Among your great qualities, your enthusiasm for the game comes through so strongly.
Well, it's natural. I love this game. I tried to play it. I didn't play it very well all through high school and college. I knew I couldn't play it professionally. I admire what they do, their skills. I know how difficult it is even for them. And as I told you earlier, I think it's the best game ever devised, so it's very easy to love it.
Dodger announcer Charlie Steiner. Charlie, how far back do your baseball memories go as a young kid following the game? Who do you remember great players back from your youth?
Well, the first time I ever went to a baseball game was at Ebbets Field in 1957. My father took me to see the Dodgers play the Cincinnati Reds. So I was a New York kid who grew up debating the merits of Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. And, you know, so I've always had a feeling for the Dodgers. And so I go back to that era, you know, and whether it was Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, you know, the real old school guys.
And now you're in the booth with the guy who was calling the play-by-play back then, Vin Scully.
Mm-hmm. I'm so blessed in that, like, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, of Southern Californians since 1958 when the Dodgers moved out here, they all grew up listening to Vin Scully. So did I, but that was 3,000 miles and 50 years ago. And to work in a parallel universe with Vin, who, you know, I don't think it's any great secret, is the best baseball announcer who has ever lived. I'm in a parallel universe with him. He's doing television, I'm doing radio, and when he doesn't travel, I do the TV for him. For me, I feel like I'm playing Pepper with Babe Ruth every day.
Hall of Fame pitcher Don Sutton. Well, you surely are a familiar sight coming back here to Dodger Stadium. Maybe a little different capacity, but boy, you had some great years here, didn't you?
A lot of fun. It's always great memories, and I never fail to not get goosebumps every time I come in here and recall some of the people and some of the great days that we had here. And again, there are a lot of bittersweet memories, too, because a lot of the people that were so important to me here are no longer with us.
Like a John Roseborough.
Johnny and Walt Alston, Monty Baskel, guys like that who played such a pivotal role in my life.
Well, it was kind of a golden year for the Dodgers, although the Dodgers, like the Braves, have a great baseball tradition. Your memories of being on a staff, a young, up-and-coming pitcher with Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, and some of those greats.
I won the lottery. That's the only way I can look at it. I won the lottery. Just thinking, the guy you're leaving out is Claude Osteen, who had over 40 shutouts in his career. We're the only starting staff in the history of baseball where every one of them finished their career with 40 starts. So you had to be, I soaked up a lot of information, and all three of those guys were more than generous with their time and with their teaching. Let's face it, I didn't know a whole lot about too many things and hadn't been far west of the Mississippi but once. So it was a wonderful education, and three of the most unselfish, talented men I had the good fortune to be with.
What did you learn from Sandy Koufax?
Just to be patient and not try to be him. He said it's very easy to follow guys like Don and me and try to be us. And he said, don't do that. You have your own identity as a pitcher. And maybe the best advice he gave me was, listen to everybody. That's the courteous thing to do. Use only the part of it that fits you. That's the smart thing to do.
Well, the amazing thing is that you look at a Koufax and Drysdale. Although Drysdale had a bit of longevity, they had incredible individual seasons. You were more the year in, year out. Although you had some outstanding seasons, it was over the long term, over a long career. Koufax established his legacy almost in 4 years, didn't he, before he retired?
Yeah, 7 years. I was a carpenter. I was a blue-collar worker. We all have our niches, and I was always contented knowing who I was and what I was. I was never going to win 25, but I was never going to lose 20. And I wasn't going to miss a start, and I'll give you my best effort, and I'll be prepared. And I can honestly say I never shortchanged them 1 second of my time in being ready to do my job. And that's what I was. I was a blue-collar pitcher. I know that. And, you know, you don't get the headlines and the ink and the billboards, but that's all right. I think I got the most out of my ability.
And it worked out long term, definitely.
Yeah, it did. I was fortunate to avoid injury, but I think I helped that good fortune with some good advice, and I'd like to think that I had good work habits.
Let's look at two very successful managers. You mentioned Walt Alston. What made Alston so great?
Oh, I think his patience, his security. He was a very, very strong man who wasn't looking for headlines. Walt knew the game, and he knew his people. And he had a great way of dealing with everybody individually. I know there were times when he wanted to wring my neck, but nobody else knew it. He'd do it in his office. And he told me once, he said, you're the second most stubborn person I ever met. And I said, yeah, and who's first? He said, I am, and you might want to remember that.
Four-time world champion manager Joe Torre. Well, you come from a very huge media market, New York, but L.A. in its own right is quite a market. A little different dynamic, isn't it, here?
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little more laid back. But you know what? It's the thing I like about it here, Dale, is the fact that, you find baseball in the sports section. New York, the baseball personalities may be anywhere, page 6, page 1. And it's a little more concentrated here as far as baseball.
Well, as a baseball player and manager, you run across a lot of friends and associations through the years. A guy that I think you were very close to in New York, Billy Crystal. Obviously, his base of activity is out here.
Yeah, I had dinner with him last night. He's a dear friend. I mean, Billy and I really got to know each other from my Yankee days because he's been a Yankee fan his whole life. But I found in Billy a celebrity, an actor, a comedian, a writer that really is very grounded. Both he and his wife Janice are wonderful people, and I'm very fortunate to have him as a dear friend. Again, he's not going to change allegiance because he's a Yankee fan, although he pulls for me, and I really appreciate that.
And he's so passionate about the game of baseball.
Well, he got a chance to have an at-bat in spring training with the Yankees this year, and I talked to him about 10 days before this was going to happen, and he sort of called me apologetically that he's going to do this, when I'm not there anymore, but I was thrilled for him because of how important it was for him, and he said it was probably one of the best things that's ever happened to him in his life, and I think a lot of us who play this game and are a part of it take what we do for granted, and to realize how we impact other people, especially people like a Billy Crystal who's successful in his own right. I think we understand how special this game is.
And how did he do in his at-bat?
He struck out, but he fouled off a couple of balls, and Mahomes threw him a cutter and struck him out. I saw a video of it. We happened to be in China at the time, but I was still able to see it on the news network.
The comic strip Peanuts actually had you as a part of one of its comic strips, and Charlie Brown talked about trying to employ a Joe Torre look. In your mind, what is the Joe Torre look?
Well, it's one of those stares that you never show emotion. I was so flattered Charles Schultz, did that, and it was unfortunate. I signed one of those cartoons for him and sent it back to him, and he was ill at the time, but I was so flattered to have him to pick me in his strip, because that's certainly a really, in today's world of a lot of angry people, that's such a great strip to look at.
Legendary pitcher Fernando Valenzuela.
Reminisce a little bit. Go back to 1981, those early years when you're out here on the mound. You have a packed stadium, pitching under pressure, and of course a great season, Rookie of the Year, and I think the Cy Young. What's going through your mind? Is it too fast of an experience? Things moving too fast for you really to think a lot about it?
Well, yeah, but also feel comfortable, feel myself with a lot of confidence, because I know what I have. I think that's helped me a lot, and really, I felt pretty good with the defense that I have in those years. I think, that's, just going over there, going to the mound and try to, throw strikes. And but really, that's, I don't want to say I wasn't nervous, but, little excited, a little anxious to throw the ball, but good experience.
There are so many Mexican Americans in Southern California. That really gave something to unite them and to make them proud about. Do people still come up to you and say, Fernando, because you look the same pretty much physically out on the street?
Yeah, they talk about some games. That's when one of the things surprised me, because they say, remember this game when you threw a no-hitter? What is the last 2 outs? And they still talking about those games, in 81, 82, when I almost win 20 games, that was 19, and in 1982 I won 19 games, and, that surprised me that people still, remember those days, and that make me feel pretty good, that people, follow my career.
The great base stealer Maury Wills.
Maury, when you come back here to Dodger Stadium, does it bring back the great memories of those teams with Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, Tommy Davis, Willie Davis?
Yes, it does, Dale. Coming to Dodger Stadium is probably as much of my life as any part of my life, going home, and this is home. When I come here, even on the fences, they have pictures of all the players of the past, Tommy Davis now, and they have Steve Garvey, Bill Russell, Steve Yeager, Maury Wills, you name it. Then some years they have a different theme, and they have some of the older players. They'll have Sandy Koufax, Don Drysdale, Maury Wills again. And then at another time they might have the Boys of Summer from Brooklyn, Jackie Robinson, Duke Snyder, Pee Wee Reese. So, the Dodger tradition lives on, and they throw it in your face all the time. So you can only reminisce, even if you don't want to. You can't help it when you come here.
So you can leave baseball now and then, but baseball really never leaves you.
Not if you're going to come to Dodger Stadium, and not if you're going to even be in Los Angeles, because just going about my everyday life, I run into Dodger fans all the time, and they bring up the past. And you just, in your introduction of me now, you said the great base stealer. So the moment you said that, I went back to 1962 when I stole 104 bases, and I can hear 56,000 fans chanting, "Go, go, go." So baseball, baseball, baseball.
Go, Maury, go. That was the chant.
Go, Maury, go. Yes. Hi, Tommy. And Tommy Lasorda just walked by. I mean, how can you not think of Dodger baseball and Dodger tradition, or reminisce about so many wonderful times in your life?
Dodger left-hander Randy Wolf.
One of the reports, one of the bios on you, said that you bought a house in the Hollywood Hills from rocker Slash. Is that true?
That is true, yes. That wasn't the reason I bought it. It's just kind of coincidental. But, yeah, it was a pretty cool move. Kind of just got out of the valley, and I enjoy it out there.
Well, that's a fun little community, isn't it? And it's also a nice little commute to Dodger Stadium.
Yeah, I actually bought that house with no one. I mean, not that I didn't have any intention coming to LA. I just didn't even think about it, and it just happened to work out that it's signed with the Dodgers, and it's a very short drive out of the ballpark.
And have you met some celebrities from Hollywood since you've moved up in that area?
Yeah, I mean, a few. You know, if you live in LA long enough, it becomes kind of like not a big deal anymore. When I lived out in Calabasas, you'd see random people there all the time, and you know, you just realize they're pretty normal people for the most part also.
Well, someone we just mentioned that's out here on the field today, Matthew McConaughey. Are you a big fan of Matt?
Yeah, I think he's great. You know, I know there's probably millions of women out there in the world that are very jealous that I met him today.